We are living through a reinvigoration of the emo scene from the early 2000s. The songs are sad, boys are wearing eyeliner, and more people are being represented by guitars and drums than ever before. This may all feel new, but have we been emo this whole time? I'm Brian from the Emo Social Club, the podcast and channel about emo nostalgia and keeping the scene alive. As an elder emo myself, I've spent a lot of my life involved in the culture, and I'm curious if this resurgence will be a redefinition of what it was then, and also what it will become. But beyond just the music, I want to look at pop culture, the things that may have influenced us at the peak of our scene phase, or the people who may have called it a lifestyle. I'm going to ask the simple and loaded question, is it emo? This will be an intro of sorts to a series of videos on this channel, diving into various iconic pop culture subjects across things like movies, video games, TV, anime, whatever seems to be inspired by, or inspiring to, all things emo. We likely won't be using this series to look into the history of emo when it comes to the music. There are plenty of other channels that have already done this. You can check out a playlist in the left-hand corner for all those videos. Instead, this is a series more focused on the themes and character of emo throughout pop culture. There's one issue with talking about what is and what isn't emo. Just calling this series Is It Emo is going to invite a lot of hate from a specific group of people. We call them gatekeepers.
Real emo only consists of the DC emotional hardcore scene and the late 90s screamo scene. Some examples of fake emo are American Football and My Chemical Romance. Emo belongs to hardcore, not to indie, pop punk, alt rock, or any other mainstream genre.
Worse than growing up with emo as an insult, now there are people who want to just keep it for themselves. So, what we're going to do in this video is define 3 categories. Descriptions of themes that should clarify emo when examining pop culture using this filter. I want to also promise you that it was completely unintentional that these themes spell out E-M-O. Theme number 1, emo is edgy. Most rock and alternative music is attempting to be on the edge to differentiate itself from other genres. Where I believe that emo sets itself apart is where it takes it a bit farther. Emo has a lot of examples of violence, blood, and death motifs that push it towards that darker edge. In fact, it almost became a joke how often others leaned on this motif.
There was a point where seriously every single photo shoot that we were doing had some form of blood in there.
I can't think of one that hasn't.
Death is a huge influence for many emo bands, and the idea of what happens when we die, the afterlife, and true crime inspired a lot of emo records. These are themes in the first 3 My Chem records. Obviously, The Black Parade focused a lot on the concept of death. Other examples like AFI's Sing the Sorrow, Story of the Year's songs Until the Day I Die and Anthem of Our Dying Day, Hawthorne Heights' Ohio is for Lovers, and the lyric that used to be in everyone's AOL Instant Messenger away message from Your So Last Summer. Apologize for bleeding on your shirt. Some of these violent themes come from horror influences, which also show up in albums and songs, like Fall Out Boy using vampires in A Little Less 16 Candles.
You call yourself hunters?
You call yourself hunters?
Avenged Sevenfold and Bring Me the Horizon using demon imagery.
I can't drown my demons, they know how to swim.
And album titles that just put it all out there like Hello Goodbye, Zombies, Aliens, Vampires, Dinosaurs. Fashion-wise, Most of the bands and their fans wear black or dark colors. When talking about emo, especially this mall emo part of the scene, we have to talk about Hot Topic and its influence over emo fashion. Primarily the black band tees, black eyeliner, and makeup. A lot of the bands would dye their hair black. I know I did this when I was in high school. There's a bit of overlap here with goth and metal culture too, with the overly complicated trip pants and shirts with edgy slogans on them. The fashion likely came out of the interest in looking darker, moodier, and scarier, like the music that it was inspired by. So, emo is edgy. It's influenced by darkness, violence, monsters, and this was showcased through our next emo theme, making itself bigger and more theatrical than other genres. Theme number 2. Emo is melodramatic. This is probably what most people think of when the emo genre comes up. Whatever emotion is being sung about, talked about, put on display, it's being felt 200%. The theatrical nature of emo, that everything needs to be explained for the back row, always, is what drew me to the scene in the first place. Especially when you're young. It feels like every bad day is your last, every bad feeling is forever, and the world just decided to be against you for no reason. Songs like Simple Plan's Welcome to My Life, Untitled, and I'm Just a Kid are examples that really lean into this. When they needed to be sad songs, they also needed to make them as sad as possible, like Mayday Parade's Miserable at Best, Stray Light Run's Existentialism on Prom Night, and Dashboard Confessional's Screaming Infidelities. Speaking about screaming, there's also bands like The Used, Under Oath, and Silverstein who use screaming in their music, a cathartic and physical way of expressing their emotions beyond just the words in the song. Music videos at the time were a way for a band to show a song as a giant production. My Chemical Romance's Helena included dancing at a funeral, The Ghost of You was a World War II epic, and The Black Parade was a literal parade into the afterlife. Paramore's Brick by Boring Brick created a fantasy realm, Good Charlotte's Predictable is a Tim Burton movie, and Hawthorne Heights' Nicky FM is a high school experience from hell. Also, everything Panic at the Disco did on A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, I feel like that example speaks for itself. There's also the live show aspect, where the band's performance had to reach those same levels. Bands would have exaggerated movements, like Gerard Way's mannerisms and Adam Lazzara spinning microphones around his neck. There's also something to be said about sexuality and gender identity in the scene. Male-identifying band members kissing on stage, obviously makeup, nail polish, and girl jeans were predominant fashions for men, with flannels, vests, and t-shirts for women. And of course, many bands were influenced by 70s and 80s music icons like David Bowie, Robert Smith, and hair metal. With these open expressions, there was perhaps a welcoming entrance for different styles to be presented, going against mainstream fashion and the status quo. Basically, there was no nuance in how emo bands and emo kids felt. It was hard to be emo. It was difficult to sort through the feelings you had and the identity that you assumed. What connected this community together is our next theme, about not fitting in with the people around you. Theme number 3. Emo is outsiders. Like we spoke about with influences, and what the gatekeepers actually get right is that emo did grow out of the DC emotional hardcore and punk scenes. Again, not getting too deep into emo history in this video, but one notable thing about punk music and punk fans is going against the grain. One of my first real examples with music that got me into emo, hardcore, metal, and other alternative genres was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. The video games had a killer soundtrack, and along with skate punk culture, influenced me to dive more into those genres. Skateboarding and punk were communities who felt like the world didn't understand them, like they were outsiders. And emo definitely shares that mentality. A lot of emo bands and fans were nerds. Kids who liked video games or comic books, maybe even Dungeons and Dragons.
Face it, you're never gonna make it.
There were kids who felt like they were losers, put down, picked on, and bullied by the popular kids. And of course the artsy kids, where I fit in, who saw themselves as different and expressed it through music, drawing, making YouTube videos. This all seemed to inspire songs for these outsider kids too. The All-American Rejects' Move Along, Seosin's You're Not Alone, and Jimmy Eat World's The Middle. It feels like these songs knew that the audience felt the same as they did. Lonely, beaten down, looking for that motivation to stand up and face the day ahead. Feeling like an outsider can mean that you feel different, like you see the world in an alternative way. Or maybe you just need your community around you to feel like you belong. There we are. Using the power of spelling, we have our emo themes defined. Emo is edgy, it's melodramatic, and it's made up of outsiders. This video is to serve as an example of those themes for upcoming videos on this channel, looking at pop culture, media, and fandoms, asking, is it emo? And figuring out if it was just a phase or a lifestyle. As a bonus, you can now use these themes to argue with pretentious gatekeepers who think that emo is only suburban white boys who scream about their feelings and never cry. If you'd like to see the upcoming videos when they drop, I invite you to hit the subscribe button. As a tease for the first 2 videos in the series, we'll be looking at Metal Gear Solid and Cowboy Bebop. We also put out podcast episodes every Monday here on the channel. If you found this video informative, hit the like button. If you can think of other edgy, melodramatic, or outsider songs, leave them in the comments below. I'm Brian with the Emo Social Club, and we'll catch you soon.